Thursday night, 49ers barely beat the Cardinals. What'd you think of that game? What did you think of Kenyon Drake? I admit, I'm surprised at how well he did against this 49ers defense and how well he did with 3 days to prepare. But what do we think about him moving forward? And who do you start? Who do you sit? Week 9. And also, Q&A. Get it.
Top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Yo. Welcome to the Week 9 Fantasy Football Show with Smitty. I'm Smitty. This is the show. I also run a little operation called SleeperU.com. You may have heard of it. And tonight, we're going to talk about the Thursday night game right on screen here. San Francisco beats the Cardinals. They beat the Cardinals in a game I thought was a lot closer than I anticipated. And I admit I'm wrong, guys. I hate when people can't admit they're wrong. I was wrong about Drake. I thought Drake would need time to learn this offense. I thought Drake would do okay. He was, when faced with hey, Smitty, do I start Drake or this guy? Drake said he was a good bye-week fill-in or injury-riddled team's answer to a running back 2 if you were totally decimated by buys and injuries. And he was a decent flex play for sure. But some people had better options. Some people told me, hey, should I start Tevin Coleman or Drake? Now, it may look silly now that you say Coleman, but that's how fantasy football works. Coleman was a better start than Drake. Drake now looks fantastic in this offense, but what does it mean moving forward? DJ, will he come back? We don't know what's going on with DJ. We don't know how long DJ will be out. We don't know how long Edmonds will be out. Edmonds also looked fantastic. Edmonds looked a lot like DJ looked. So you got to ask yourself, Edward, this is the last night. Happy Halloween, by the way. We're going to move Edward out of here after tonight. This is Edward's last show for the year, so everybody say bye to Edward. But what do we do? Let's talk about the elephant in the room here. Is Drake going to take over the starting role? Is it way too early to talk like that? Is it the Cardinals' scheme, which has really been pretty darn good lately for running backs? Look how good Edmonds did with his 150 and 3 TDs. He looked like a top 5 running back. Not saying he was. He looked like it. He played like it that game, but I mean, in general, I'm not going to say that Edmonds was on his way to being a top 5 running back for the year, but in that moment, in that game, he played like the number 1 player in fantasy, but he looked like, oh God, if they lean on him like this, he's going to be elite. But they just did the same thing with Drake. Drake looked fantastic. I'm not saying Drake isn't a good running back. Drake has to be darn good and more intelligent than I ever thought to pick up what he had to pick up in 3 games. I'm sure that anybody that started Drake started him out of necessity. They didn't really have many options. And I would have started Coleman over him. I would have started a lot of players over Drake. So don't feel bad if you put Drake on your bench. Thomas says he benched Drake. Crying emojis. Thomas, you're not alone. And I gave advice saying, hey, start Coleman over Drake. Coleman coming off the game he came off, Drake being traded and having 3 days to prepare in an offense that was facing the undefeated 49ers. You couldn't have seen that coming. You dropped Drake Malone to pick up Breida to back up Coleman. Not the dumbest move ever at the time, but Drake was, starting in this game. Breida's Breida's a good running back. Breida had a good night. Breida did pretty well. The San Francisco 49er rushing crew is going to rotate. And while Coleman, I do believe, will be the lead dog, you could have freaking Breida have a 100-yard game at any moment and Coleman have, 30 yards and then have maybe 50 receiving and a touchdown. So Brady could do well and Coleman could do well. They both could do bad. It's tough, man. Smitty, what happened with the counselor? Okay, so here let me break this down too, and then we'll get back into the Drake thing. So I don't know if a lot of you, Drake did surprise everyone. Some people started him out of necessity, but no one probably expected that against the 49ers. If you say you expected him to have over 100 yards rushing and a touchdown and some receiving action and looking like a top 5 to 10 running back play, maybe top 5 running back play on the week, you're lying. You're lying. Against the 49ers, no way. Was he a guy you wanted to play? Did you play Drake? You might have. Good on you. And I think that you were excited to get those numbers and you weren't expecting them. So what happened with the counselor? Okay, so as you guys know, I run the Fantasy Football Throne League on Instagram. It's called Fantasy Football Throne. I created it. It's my baby. It's the best, and I think the best fantasy football expert league on Instagram, and one of the biggest fantasy football expert leagues, period, in the industry, hands down. The reason I can say that is because there were over roughly 600,000 followers if you combined all 12 of the Instagram channels together and pages together. You had over 600,000 followers. What I did was design a league where you, the followers of each expert, draft that expert's team. So when that expert's on the clock, so we're talking about 12 experts, 12 teams, it's like a normal draft. When I'm on the clock, my followers gather together. I kind of do a live. We all do it a little bit different. Some people drafted on their own and didn't even use their followers at all. But I would go live on Instagram and say,